The hum was low, just at the edge of hearing, but for Arlen Hayes it was the only sound that mattered. It was the respiration of harmonia, the thrum of nutrient-rich fluids pulsing through kilometers of vascular corridors, the deep, slow, metabolic sigh of a city-sized organism floating in the void. His boot soles, designed to grip the pliable chitinous floor, made almost no sound as he walked. He was in Sector 9, Maintenance Conduit 4 Beta. The air here was thick with the scent of ozone and damp complex proteins. The walls around him were not metal, but a living, regenerating membrane glowing with a faint, pearlescent light. They were warm to the touch. Arlen was on the night shift, or rather, what passed for night on a station that generated its own 24-hour cycle of bioluminescent daylight and programmed dusk. He preferred this time. The station was quieter, its billion inhabitants mostly asleep, and he could hear its real voice. He stopped, placing a gloved hand on a section of the wall that had turned a sickly, bruised purple. A minor tissue infection, a simple fungal bloom that was choking the local cut conduits. Right, Arlen murmured, his voice a low rumble in the silence. That doesn't look comfortable. He unslung his maintenance kit, a bioorganic pouch that seemed to be made of the same material as the station itself. From it, he pulled a diagnostic syringe, its needle formed from crystalline bone. He gently inserted it into the membrane. A small shiver ran through the wall, visible as a ripple in the pearlescent light. "Easy, girl. Just a checkup," he whispered. He watched the data stream onto his forearm display. Localized necrotic bloom. "Looks like you ate something that disagreed with you." He was technically talking to himself. He was a bio-maintenance engineer, a glorified janitor for a living building, a glorified plumber for organic pipes. But in the quiet hours, Arlen felt the station talk back. Not in words, but in pressure and temperature, in the subtle change of the hum. He felt its rhythms, as if they were his own. A flicker of something else, a cold static against the back of his skull, made him pause. It was the echo of a different time, a different connection, one that had burned him, one that had cost lives. He shook his head, pushing the memory down. Just fatigue, he told himself, packing the diagnostic tool away. Too many night shifts. He prepared a curative phage, loading it into an applicator. This'll just sting for a second. He pressed the applicator to the bruised tissue. The wall flinched, and then the purple rapidly receded, replaced by the healthy, glowing pearl. The ambient hum deepened, stabilizing. "There you go, good as new." A crisp, clear voice cut through his private communion. "If I didn't know better, Hayes, I'd say you were sweet-talking the plumbing." Arlen didn't jump. He'd felt her approach, a different kind of disturbance in the station's ambient field, one that was purely her. He turned slowly, a dry smile touching his lips. Sarah's Kyle stood at the junction of the corridor, a specimen case held in one hand. She was, as always, a stark, elegant contrast to the organic chaos of his job. Her lab coat was impossibly white, her dark hair pulled back in a severe but functional knot, and her eyes held a sharp, analytical intelligence that missed nothing. She was a xenogeneticist, one of the best on Harmonia, and part of the reason his job was never boring. Just admiring the architecture, Cale Arlen said, sealing his kit. "You're working late. Or early. I can never tell you scientists. This one couldn't wait." She stepped closer, and the corridor lights brightened slightly, in her presence sensing her biosignature. She held up the case. Inside, suspended in nutrient gel, was a cluster of what looked like small, iridescent mushrooms. "New sample?" he asked. "New species," she corrected, a spark of excitement in her voice. "Found it growing off the back of a discarded fuel cell in the lower processing bay." "It's fascinating. It doesn't just glow. It sings." Arlen raised an eyebrow. "Sings a high-frequency pitch structured. Almost mathematical. I think it's how they communicate, modulating their bioluminescence." She tapped the glass. "Imagine that. Singing mushrooms." What will this station cook up next, as long as they don't sing anything off-key? I'm fine with it, Arlen said. Just don't let them hybridize with a nutrient paste in the mess hall. I'm not sure I could handle spaghetti that harmonizes. Saris let out a short, genuine laugh, a sound that always seemed to surprise him, coming from someone so composed. You're a cynic, Hayes. This is the sound of evolution. To me, it's the sound of a potential new work order when they get into the ventilation shafts, he retorted. Their banter was like this, a comfortable rhythm of her scientific optimism and his pragmatic reality. It was a friendship built in the late hours in shared cafeterias and specimen labs. Well, this one is safely contained. I'm taking it to my lab, she paused. Are you done here, just about? The main conduit is clear. He gestured to the healed wall. Good. Her smile faded slightly, replaced by a fractional tension he recognized. Did you see the internal bulletin? I try to avoid those. They're usually about mandated fun days or changes to the protein rations, neither of which I find fun. This one's different. Saris's gaze drifted past him, toward the pulsing light of the corridor. My family is coming. Arlen's nonchalant mood evaporated. The Kale family. The Kale family. On a station defined by biotechnology, the Kales were royalty. They didn't just use BioWare. They were BioWare. Their ships were organic. Their fortunes were built on gene-splicing empires, and their political reach was measured in star systems. Saris was one of them, a fact he often managed to forget until she reminded him. Ah, he said the only neutral word he could find. The whole clan, the elders anyway. My grandmother. She said the word like it was a weight. There's a conference this weekend. Control of emerging biotechnologies. A treaty signing with the outer sectors. Harmonia is the centerpiece, so of course the Kales have to be here to show off their prized geneticist. The bitterness in her tone was subtle, but Arlen caught it. He saw the tension in her jaw. Sounds like a big weekend, he said carefully. It's a nightmare, she said, her voice low. It means inspections. It means politics. It means expectations. The air between them grew heavy. Arlen, a man who had spent the last 5 years of his life deliberately avoiding power politics and expectations, felt a familiar urge to retreat. Well, I'm sure they'll be proud, singing mushrooms and all. She gave him a look, sharp and tired. Right. I'll see you around, Arlen. She turned and walked away, her white coat a stark figure against the living architecture, leaving Arlen alone again with the hum of the station. But now the hum felt different. It was troubling. The shift ended 2 hours later. Arlen cycled through the cleansing showers, the microscopic symbiotes scrubbing his skin of the day's work, and headed for the habitation ring. He was tired, but the interaction with Saris had left him unsettled. He found her at the Root Vine, a small eatery in the residential plaza, where the tables and chairs were not built, but grown from the hardened roots of a massive central tree. The air smelled of yeast and roasted nuts. Saris was at a small table in the back, hunched over a bulbous glass of amber liquid. She'd clearly been there a while. Arlen slid into the chair opposite her without an invitation. A root tendril on the table immediately offered him a menu which he waved away. Tough night, he asked. She looked up, her eyes unfocused for a second before they cleared. Tough life. She took a long sip of her drink. This is Kale Strain brandy. 300 years old, brewed in 0G. My grandmother's favorite. I'm drinking it, so I'll be sick of it by the time she gets here. That's one strategy. Arlen motioned to a passing server drone, a creature like a multi-legged crab, made of polished wood, and ordered a black grain coffee. What's the real problem, Saris, not just the conference? She swirled the liquid in her glass, watching the light fracture. It's the conference, but it's what comes with it. My family doesn't do visits. They do maneuvers. Every meal is a negotiation. Every conversation is a test of loyalty. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a near whisper, though the ambient noise of the plaza covered them. They are bringing someone with them, a prospect, from the Cygnus Biolith Corporation. Arlen felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He wasn't stupid, a prospect. A strategic engagement prospect, she said the words, tasting like acid. They want to merge the Kale gene rights with Cygnus's terraforming assets. And the merger will be sealed as it always is with a union. A wedding. Mine. Arlen stared at her. Behind the sharp wit and the brilliant mind, he'd always sensed a kind of loneliness in her, a cage she was rattling against. Now he could see the bars. They can just do that, order you to marry someone. It's not an order, Arlen. It's an expectation, she said, mocking the word. In my family, that's worse. It's assumed. My entire life has been assumed. Go to the best schools, study the right subjects, join the Harmonia Project to show the family's influence, and then marry the right person to secure the next generation of power. She finished her drink in one sharp gesture, slamming the glass down on the root table. It shuddered, but held. I won't do it, she said more to herself than to him. I'm building things here. Real things. Singing mushrooms for God's sake. I'm not going to be a broodmare for a corporate alliance. She looked desperate, trapped, and suddenly very young. She ran a hand through her hair, dislodging the perfect knot. Then she looked at him, her gaze sharp and appraising, but with a wild, half-manic light in it. I'm looking for a weekend boyfriend, she said, the words tumbling out. Interested, Arlen blinked. The server drone placed his coffee in front of him and he stared at it, the steam rising in complex patterns. He processed her words, the context, the desperation, and then an involuntary dry chuckle escaped him. It was absurd. The entire situation was absurd. He looked up, meeting her gaze, and gave her his signature humorless smile. I'm not taking the couch, right? A genuine startled laugh burst out of her. It was the laugh he'd heard earlier, but louder, freer. The tension broke. They both laughed, the sound incongruous in the quiet yeast-scented air. It was a shared, ridiculous moment. Then, just as quickly, her laughter died. Her expression became deadly serious. Her hand shot across the table and grabbed his wrist. Her grip was strong, her skin warm. Arlen, she said, her voice intense. I am not joking, not really. The humor vanished. Arlen tried to pull his hand back, but she held firm. Seriously, that's crazy. You're talking about your family, the Kales. They're not going to be fooled by a maintenance engineer. You don't understand, she said, leaning in so close he could smell the brandy on her breath. It's not about fooling them. It's about protocol. It's a Kale custom. We're archaic like that. We have traditions. She let go of his wrist, but her intensity held him captive. This weekend, it's not just a conference. It's a sept gathering. A gathering of the inner circle. According to the Kale Charter, if I present a partner at the gathering, they are given provisional status. They are considered a prospective mate. And as long as they are in consideration, no other engagement can be forced upon me. Arlen's mind raced. You mean you just have to show up with someone? I have to show up with someone credible, someone who isn't intimidated by them, someone outside the system, someone they can't buy or threaten. Her eyes bored into his. They'll try to vet you, of course. They'll try to dig into your life. But you, Arlen, you have no life. Not one they can see anyway. It was true. His official record was bland ex-military honorable discharge, technical certifications, 5 years of flawless maintenance work on Harmonia. He'd built it that way. A wall of boring bureaucratic beige to hide the man he used to be, the things he used to do. And it's just for the weekend, she pressed. 3 days. You stand next to me, you hold my hand, you nod at my grandmother, and you endure a few dinners. On Monday, we have a very public, very amicable breakup. I get a few more months of freedom and you get my undying gratitude. And I'll see to it that your next promotion review goes very, very well. Arlen sat back. The cold knot in his stomach had returned tighter this time. This was what he had run from. This was politics power, the games of great houses. It was a trap. He shook his head. Saris, I can't. The light in her eyes dimmed. Why not? It's acting. You're good at acting like you don't care about anything. Just do that. It's not that. He rubbed his temples, a ghost of an old pain flickering behind his eyes. The static. He remembered a planet, a living world mind screaming as he bonded with it, trying to force it to repel an invading fleet. He remembered the backlash, the synaptic fire, the smell of burning neurons, his and the planet's. He remembered the silence after. I don't do entanglements, Saris, he said, his voice flat. Not with people, and especially not with people who have families like yours. I just want to do my job. I just want to be left alone, I know, she said, her voice suddenly soft. She looked down at her empty glass. I know you do. And I wouldn't ask, I wouldn't, but it's not just the marriage, Arlen. It's not just about me. He waited. This was new. There's something wrong on the station, she said, her xenogeneticist self returning the professional analyst. And it's not just your fungal blooms. What are you talking about? Harmonia is fine. I'd know if she wasn't. Would you notice a 5% increase in random cellular mutation in the lower cargo bays? Or a resonance shift in the primary nutrient vats? I noticed. I've been tracking it. She pulled a small, flexible display from her pocket and slid it across the table. It lit up, showing two complex waveforms side by side. They were jagged, chaotic, but almost identical. The one on the left, she said, is the biointerference I've been recording on Harmonia for the last 2 weeks. It's subtle, but it's accelerating. It's designed to agitate the station's core functions on a micro level, to make it sick. And the one on the right, Arlen asked, his eyes tracing the disturbing symmetry. That, she said, her voice grim, is from my old research files. It's the signature of a project run by my former mentor, a man named Savrin Cade. The name meant nothing to Arlen. Dr. Savrin Cade, she continued, was the most brilliant mind I ever met. And the most dangerous. He taught me everything. He believed that biotechnology, life itself, shouldn't be controlled by corporations or families. He believed it should be liberated, that it had a will of its own, and we were just its jailers. Sounds like an extremist. He is an extremist. He was expelled from the Kale Institute for unethical experiments. He tried to create a fully sentient, weaponized virus just to see if he could. He called chaos the engine of evolution. And Arlen, his signature, is all over the station right as the most powerful families in the galaxy are about to convene here. She looked at him, her scientific cool replaced by a raw, genuine fear. I need a weekend boyfriend, Arlen, to handle my family. But I need a friend with me because I think someone is about to try and burn this place to the ground. And if I'm stuck in political dinners with some corporate idiot, I can't watch my censors. I can't protect my work. I can't protect the station. She finally said the words that mattered. Protect the station. Arlen looked from her face to the waveform on the display. He thought of the hum, the steady respiration he'd felt his entire shift. He thought of the minor infection, the bruise on the wall. Was it just a random bloom, or the first symptom of something deeper, something intentional? He hated this. He hated being pulled in. He had come to Harmonia to forget the war, to forget what he was. He was a mechanic, a janitor, he fixed pipes. That was the lie he told himself, and it was a comfortable one. But Saris wasn't just asking for a political pawn. She was asking for an ally. She was asking for backup. And she was right. He knew the station. He felt its rhythms. If someone was trying to hurt it, he would be the first to know. He let out a long sigh, the sound of a man who knew he was about to make a very bad decision. This Dr. Cade, he said. You're sure he's here? I'm sure his work is here, she corrected. That's bad enough. Arlen stared at the display at the twin signatures of chaos. He was trading one kind of war for another. But maybe this time, it was a war he could choose. He finished his now cold coffee in one gulp. Okay, he said. I'll do it. Relief washed over Saris's face so profound, it almost made him flinch. But he said, holding up a finger, "We have ground rules. Rule number 1, I am not taking the couch. If I'm playing the part, I'm getting a decent bed. Rule number 2, your grandmother tries to have me assassinated, all bets are off. And rule number 3 tells me everything you know about this Savrin Cade. Everything." A real smile, bright and sudden, lit up her face. Done. Done. And done. Fine, Arlen grumbled, trying to reclaim his cynical exterior. Just a weekend roll. What could possibly go wrong? He stood up, suddenly exhausted. "I'm going to get some sleep. I have a feeling I'm going to need it." "Arlen," she called after him as he started to walk away. He turned back. "Thank you," she said. It was quiet and completely sincere. He just nodded and turned away, heading for his quarters. As he walked through the main plaza, the grand bioluminescent trees that formed the ceiling pulsed with soft light. He passed under them, just another tired worker heading home. But for the first time in 5 years, he wasn't just listening to the station. He was listening to it. And as he stepped into the transit pod, he felt it. A tiny, almost imperceptible shiver that ran through the deck plates up his boots and settled in his bones. It was a tremor deep and low, like the first distant rumble of a coming storm. Harmonia was afraid, and so he realized was he. The organic ship that carried the Cal family to Harmonia did not dock in any conventional sense. It was grafted. Arlen watched from the opulent observation deck, a place he'd never had a reason to visit before. It was all polished bone arches and vast polarized membranes that looked out onto the void. The Cal bioship, a creature, in its own right, resembling a massive iridescent nautilus, extended a fleshy umbilical-like docking tube that interfaced with Harmonia's main spire. The station's own membranes peeled back, accepting the connection with a shudder that Arlen felt in the soles of his shoes. He tugged at the collar of the suit. It wasn't a suit, not really. It was a formal wear symbiont loaned to him by Mira Solon, his best friend, and the station's most irreverent bio-nurse. It was midnight black with a texture like brushed velvet, and it was currently doing its best to regulate his temperature and posture, making him feel stiff and theatrical. "Stop fidgeting," Mira had told him 20 minutes ago in his quarters, slapping his hands away from the collar. "It's a 2,000 credit rental, Hayes. It's supposed to make you look like you own something. Try to act the part." Mira, with her shock of bright copper hair and eyes that saw too much, was the only person on Harmonia who knew he was hiding from something, even if she didn't know what. "I look like a high-end waiter," he'd grumbled. "Good. Waiters are invisible until they're needed. Then they're essential. That's basically your life story. Now the rules for Kale High Society: never speak. First, never eat the purple-colored food and compliment the elder's bio-heirloom. It's the glowing slug thing on her shoulder. Just say, it looks vigorous. Got it." He nodded, feeling ridiculous. Now, standing beside a woman who looked like a goddess carved from pearl, he felt even more so. Saris Kyle was gone. In her place was Lady Saris of the Kale lineage. She wore a ceremonial bio-dress, a living garment of pale, interlocking fibers that shifted and flowed with her breath, culminating in a high, stiff collar that framed her face. Her hair was bound in a complex, glistening knot. She looked beautiful, untouchable, and utterly miserable. The main hatchway dilated. The air pressure equalized with a sigh. "Ready," she murmured, her voice tight. "As I'll ever be," Arlen said. "Just remember, if they ask, my family invented sustainable protein paste. Very bland, very profitable." A flicker of her real smile, just for a second. "Try not to be charming, Hayes. They'll see it as a threat. No danger of that." He offered his arm, a gesture he'd practiced in the mirror, and still felt was absurd. She took it. Her hand was cold, but her grip was firm. The contact was an anchor. This is the role, he reminded himself. Just a weekend. The Kale delegation emerged. They were not a group of people. They were a procession. They moved like a pride of rare, dangerous animals, all clad in living symbiotic garments that rippled with subdued light. And at their head, walking with a cane that looked carved from the spine of some great beast, was Elder Kale. She was an ancient woman, her face a roadmap of centuries, her eyes the color of a winter sky, bright cold, and missing nothing. The bio-heirloom on her shoulder, a creature of pulsating blue light, seemed to watch everything. The elder's gaze swept the room, dismissed the station's formal greeting committee, and landed directly on Saris. Then deliberately, it moved to the man whose arm she was holding. "Saris, my child," the elder's voice was a cultured, resonant force. It cut through the atrium's murmur. Grandmother Saris said, inclining her head in a perfect, respectful bow, "Welcome back to Harmonia." "You are looking healthy," the elder said, which Arlen was learning was Kale speak for, "You are not conforming to my expectations." Her eyes raked over Arlen, a dispassionate appraisal. "You have brought a guest." "This is Arlen Hayes," Saris said, her voice smooth and practiced. "Arlen, my grandmother, Elder Alara Kale." Arlen gave the slight bow Mira had drilled into him. "Elder, it's an honor. Harmonia is well served by your family's visit." Alara Kale's eyes narrowed just a fraction. "Mr. Hayes, you are a station employee, I believe, maintenance." She didn't say the word like an insult. She said it was like a diagnosis. "Bio-maintenance engineer, yes," Arlen said, keeping his tone level. "Someone has to sweep the floors." A thin reptilian smile touched the elder's lips. "Indeed. We must all know our place." Her gaze lingered on his hand, which was now holding Saris's. A curious choice series. "But we shall have time for introductions. The conference awaits." She swept past them, her procession following in her wake, leaving Arlen and Saris in the sudden, quiet vacuum. Arlen let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Well, I think she likes me. She's already cross-referencing your genetic profile with her list of acceptable breeding stock." Saris set a tremor in her hand. "Come on. The first test is over." "I'm not taking the couch," Arlen muttered, just for her. "I want that in writing." She squeezed his hand, a quick, grateful pressure. Noted Mr. Hayes. Their first stop was not a political function but a tour, or rather, an inspection. Saris was required to show her guest the Kale family's private gene gardens, a secure sector of Harmonia, leased exclusively to them. As they walked, a familiar, stocky figure in a station security uniform stepped out of a side corridor, timing his approach perfectly. Jax Orion, head of station security, had a face like a worn-out boot and a disposition to match. He and Arlen shared a mutual respect built on fixing each other's problems. Hayes Jax grunted, falling into step beside them. He nodded to Saris. "Ma'am, Jax." "Trouble?" Arlen asked. "Just the usual pre-conference jitters." Jax kept his voice low, his eyes scanning the corridor. "But I don't like it. We got 100 delegates on station, half of them from competing biocore. And now I'm getting chatter." "What kind of chatter?" Saris asked, her professional curiosity piqued. "Extremist noise. Groups that don't like the idea of corporations carving up the genome. Specifically the Helix Covenant." Arlen and Saris exchanged a glance. "What about them?" Arlen asked. "They're purists. Bio-liberation nuts. They think living tech like Harmonia is a slave. They've been quiet for a year, but the chatter is back. Rumors of a new weapon, something that attacks the infrastructure itself. Probably nothing. But with the Kales here, it makes my job harder. Keep your head down, Hayes. These high blood types attract trouble. We'll be careful," Jax Saris said. Jax nodded, satisfied he'd delivered his warning. "Right. I've got patrols doubled in the Kale sectors. Enjoy the gardens." He veered off, disappearing into the crowd. The Kale gene gardens were less a garden and more a laboratory of horrors. It was a vast, human-controlled biosphere, but instead of flowers, there were rows of pulsating organic pods. "These are our heirlooms," Saris explained, her voice taking on a clinical, detached tone, as she slipped into her scientist persona. Arlen realized it was armor, generations of curated genetic assets. She gestured to a tank where a creature, like a living metallic ribbon, constantly wove itself through a rack of blades. A self-repairing monomolecular blade symbiote. A weapon. She pointed to a series of pulsating stalks. These are choke spores, designed to interface with and overwhelm an enemy's life support systems, literally strangling a ship or station from the inside. Arlen felt a coldness creep over him, but it wasn't just from the biorefrigeration units. It was from Harmonia. He placed a hand on the wall of the garden's containment unit, and the station's ambient hum felt wrong here. It was a thin, high-pitched whine, a sound of pain. "They're beautiful in their own way," Saris was saying. "The genetic code is so precise." "Pure function. They're weapons," Saris Arlen said, his voice quiet. "Of course they are. We're a great house. We have to protect ourselves." "This one," a new voice said. It was one of Saris's cousins, a sharp-faced man Arlen hadn't bothered to learn the name of. "This is the one that interests me. The one you've been working on, Saris." He was pointing to a display model, Project Hemlock, a phage designed to throttle a station's core biofunctions, to gain control. "Your research, I believe." Saris stiffened. It was a theoretical model for immune defense, Caden. "Of course." Caden smiled, a cold gesture. "A very useful theory. One that could give us a permanent administrative hand on Harmonia's controls. The Elder is very interested in its defensive applications." Arlen felt the station's pain spike. The hum in his head became a shriek, throttling, hurting. He gritted his teeth, the old static flaring behind his eyes. He wasn't just hearing it. He was feeling it. Harmonia's fear and pain, as if it were his own. He closed his eyes for a second, forcing the connection down, smothering it. "It's not real. It's just the station. It's not the planet. It's not a war." When he opened them, Saris was watching him, her clinical mask gone, replaced with concern. "Arlen, are you all right? You look pale." "Just impressed," Arlen lied, pulling his hand from the wall. "It's a lot to take in, all this function." The first formal meeting was that afternoon. It was a closed-door affair in Cale's private bio-formed suite. Arlen was there in his capacity as prospective mate, which meant he was to sit in a beautifully carved, uncomfortable chair, drink a bitter tea, and be silent. He watched as Saris was put on trial. "Your loyalty has been flexible," Saris Elder Cale stated, her hands steepled. "My loyalty is to Science Grandmother." "And to the station," Saris countered, her voice steady. "Your loyalty is to your family," Caden snapped. "That research you're doing, this singing mushroom nonsense, it's a waste of Cale resources. You should be focused on Project Hemlock, on solidifying our control. Saris stood up, a breach of protocol. Arlen saw her hands were shaking. "Harmonia is a living city, not a fortress to be conquered. Our role here should be symbiotic, not parasitic." "A pretty speech," the Elder said, her voice dangerously soft. "One that sounds suspiciously like the idealism of your old mentor." "What was his name, Dr. Savrincade?" Saris flinched as if struck. "We all know what happened to him," the Elder continued. "He was expelled. He chose liberation over family. And where is he now? In the gutter, a pariah. Do not make the same mistake, child. This treaty is vital. The family will have control of Harmonia's core systems. You will support that, or you will be recalled." Saris looked trapped, her arguments turning to ash in her mouth. She was cornered by her own blood. Arlen watched his own anger, a slow burn. He was starting to understand just how high the walls of her cage really were. The glitches began that evening, just as the first formal reception for the conference was beginning. They were small at first. Arlen and Saris were walking through the Grand Synaptic Hall, a cavernous space where the station's main neural pathways were visible as rivers of light pulsing in the translucent ceiling. The agro sector just went offline, Arlen said quietly, checking his private data feed. Offline. The whole sector. No, not offline. Just weird. He read the report from a fellow maintenance tech. Sector 7. All the nutrient-paste vats. They've spontaneously mutated. The report says the mold is singing. The same high-frequency pitch. It's causing mass panic among the food techs. My mushrooms. Sarah's whispered, her eyes wide. But that's impossible. They were in a sealed lab. Are you sure? An alert flashed on his feed, this one from Jax. And now the vascular pipes in Sector 9 are clogging. Not with fungus. With rogue cell growth. They're forming tumors, fast-growing. They're clogging the nutrient flow. That's not a glitch, Arlen Saris said, pulling him into an alcove. That's a probing attack. He's testing the system. Savrin Cade. Yes. She pulled out her own data slate. I've been running simulations. The patterns I've been tracking aren't random. They're targeted. He's not just making the station sick, he's teaching it. Look. She showed him the screen. The jagged waveform from the night before was now overlaid with a new one. The singing mold mutation, she said, pointing. It matches his signature. But this is the data from the pipeline blockage. A third different signature appeared, and this is the biostatic in the comms system. A fourth. He's not using one key, Arlen. He's using a dozen. He's created a synthetic biological language, and he's speaking to Harmonia. And Harmonia, it's starting to listen. Arlen felt a chill. He was the one who listened to the station. The idea of someone else whispering in its ear, someone with poison in his voice, felt like a personal violation. We have to tell Jax, tell the Elder, and say what Sarah shot back. That my ex-mentor is attacking the station with bad vibes and singing mold. They'll laugh me out of the room. They'll say I'm hysterical. Or worse, they'll accuse me of being in on it. My family wants a crisis, Arlen. It's the perfect excuse for them to implement Project Hemlock and take control. She was right. She was trapped from both sides. Then what do we do? He asked. We play the part, she said, her gaze hardening. We are going to this party. We smile. And we keep our eyes open. I need to get to my lab. I need to find the core of his code. The party was a sea of power. Arlen had never seen so many shades of wealth and influence in one place. The air was thick with symbiotic perfumes, and the sound of quiet, ruthless negotiation, disguised as conversation. Arlen stayed by Saris's side, a silent, watchful shadow. He was her excuse to move through the room, her shield. They made a convincing couple, he realized. Her all, sharp, brilliant energy. Him, the calm, unreadable man at her back. Then the music changed. A slow, biorhythmic pulse that was genetically engineered to be pleasant. Ah, Ceres sighed. The ceremonial dance. A Kyle tradition. We have to. I don't dance, Arlen said, a note of genuine panic in his voice. You're about to, she said, taking his hand. Just follow my lead. And try not to step on my heirloom fibers. She led him to the center of the floor, under the gaze of her grandmother, and the entire delegation. The role demanded this. He put one hand on her waist, the living fabric of her dress feeling impossibly soft and warm. She put her hand on his shoulder. They were close, closer than they had ever been. They began to move stiffly at first. You're a terrible dancer, Hayes, she murmured, her face close to his. I told you. I'm a maintenance engineer. My talents lie in unclogging pipes. Just stop thinking about it. Feel the music. It's just a pulse. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He tried. He stopped thinking about the Elder watching them, about the singing mold, about the static in his head. He focused on her, the scent of her hair, the surprisingly strong grip of her hand in his, the intelligence in her eyes. The act began to fade. You're good at this, he said quietly, surprising himself. This is all of it. The politics, the smiles. I watched you with your family. You were stronger than any of them." Her expression softened. The Lady Ceres mask slipped. "I'm not. I'm terrified. I feel like I'm drowning Arlen. And you're the only solid ground I've found all week." "It's just a weekend, remember," he said, but the words felt hollow. "Right." She smiled a small, sad smile. The weekend boyfriend. They danced, moving more smoothly now, a single unit. The space between them was charged no longer an act. He saw her not as a scientist or a noble, but just as Ceres. And he realized with a sinking feeling that he liked this. He liked the feel of her in his arms. He liked being the one she trusted. And that was more dangerous than any bioweapon. The dance ended. The room applauded politely. He had passed another test. But the night was not over. Mr. Hayes. Arlen had been grabbing 2 glasses of scifi champagne when the elder appeared at his elbow. He'd been looking for Ceres, who had been pulled away by her cousin. "Elder Kale," he said, inclining his head. "You dance well for a maintenance man," she said. "I'll get by. My granddaughter seems taken with you." Her cold eyes assessed him. "You are a puzzle, Mr. Hayes. Your record is immaculate. Boring even. Ex-military. Excellent service record, then a sudden unremarkable discharge. You come here. You seek the lowest profile, highest skilled job on the station. You have no family, no attachments. You are by all accounts a ghost." Arlen's blood ran cold. "I like my privacy, I am sure." The elder took a sip of water from a small crystal goblet. "Ceres is a brilliant, foolish child. She believes in symbiosis and idealism. She does not understand that this station is not a partner. It is a tool, a piece of territory. And the Helix Covenant, these liberators, are wolves. To fight wolves, you need hunters, not idealists." She turned to him, her gaze penetrating. "She trusts you. You have an influence. And you have a past I am sure that is not as boring as your file suggests. You have the look of a man who knows how to survive." "What do you want?" Elder Arlen asked, dropping the pretense. "I want to offer you a future. A Kale Industries contract. Patronage. Wealth beyond what you could make in 10 lifetimes. All we require is your flexibility, your support. Help Ceres see that our path is the only one. That Project Hemlock is not a weapon, but a shield. Help us restructure Harmonia for its own protection." Be on the right side of history, Mr. Hayes. She was offering to buy him. To buy his influence over Ceres, to buy his silence. Arlen looked at the elder, at this woman who saw a living, breathing city, as a tool. He thought of the high, thin whine of pain he'd felt in the gene garden. He thought of Ceres, trapped between her family and her conscience. He placed the 2 champagne glasses on a passing drone's tray. "I appreciate the offer, Elder. But I'm just a maintenance engineer," he said, his voice flat and cold. "I don't understand politics. I just fix what's broken. And from where I'm standing, the station isn't what's broken here." He turned his back on her, a gesture of profound, unforgivable disrespect, and went to find Ceres. He found her by the main observatory port, staring at her data slate, her face pale. "It's worse," she said, not even looking up. "The glitches, they're not glitches. They're cascading. He's found a harmonic Arlen. He's linking the systems. The agro sector, the pipelines, the comms, he's creating a feedback loop. She was cut off by a station-wide alert. Not a polite chime, but a screaming guttural wail. A biohazard warning." "What is it?" Arlen yelled as the lights in the hall flickered and turned a deep, warning red. Jax Orion's voice boomed over the station intercom, strained and full of static. "All station alert, biohazard containment breach in residential sector Gamma. All security and medical teams, response code. Red 9. Arlen grabbed his own comms. "Jax. What's happening?" Hayes Jax's voice was breathless. "I've never seen anything like it. The walls. The walls are leaking. I don't know about sports." On the main observatory screen, the view shifted from the party to a live security feed from Gamma Sector. Arlen's blood turned to ice. It wasn't a leak. The living walls of the residential towers were metamorphosing. They were dissolving, collapsing into a thick gray fibrous pulp. The pulp was extruding, growing, spinning. It was sealing the corridors. It was covering the doors. It was forming cocoons. "They're being sealed in," Ceres whispered, horrified. "The spores enveloping the entire sector." "How many people?" Arlen asked, his voice tight. "Gamma Sector, night shift." "Maybe 500. Maybe more," Jax's voice crackled. "We can't get in. The stuff is like instant-set biological steel. We can't cut it." Then a new message appeared, superimposed over the security feed, written in the same jagged cellular script as the biosignatures. It was everywhere. On the walls, on the screens, on their data slates. "Harmonia is not your property. It is not your tool. It belongs to itself," Helix, Arlen said. "He's not just making it sick," Ceres said, her hand gripping his arm so hard he could feel her nails. "He's taken it. He's taken the whole sector." And then Arlen heard it. It was not a hum. It was not a whine of pain. Through the static in his head, through the layers of trauma and control he had built for 5 years, he heard the station. It was a scream. It was 1,000 voices, the voices of the men, women, and children trapped inside Gamma Sector. And it was the station's own singular voice of terror and agony all at once. The sound broke over him, a tidal wave of pure, unfiltered, empathetic pain. It demanded a response. It demanded a connection. It demanded him. Arlen clutched his head, his knuckles white. The urge to open the floodgates, to reach out with his mind, to synchronize and fight back was so strong. It was a physical sickness. Not here. Not now. They'll see. The Elder will see. She'll know what I am. He fought it down, choking on the station's scream, forcing himself to be just Arlen Hayes, the maintenance man. "We have to get to the lab," Ceres said, pulling on his arm. Arlen nodded, his body trembling, the scream still echoing in his skull. He had held back. He had kept his cover. But as he looked at the screen, at the silent gray cocoons entombing 500 people, he knew he had just failed them all. The Grand Synapse Hall was not a room built on Harmonia. It was a room of Harmonia. It was the station's formal consciousness, a vast chamber where the primary neural bundles, the brain, of the living city were exposed. They pulsed in the translucent floor, and walls a living galaxy of soft, blue-white light. The conference hastily reconvened after the Gamma Sector quarantine was an act of political denial. Delegates, including the Kale family, had gathered to sign their treaty, their voices echoing in the cathedral-like space. They stood on a raised dais, surrounded by their bodyguards, pretending that 500 of the station's inhabitants were not currently entombed in biological cocoons. "This is a mistake," Arlen said, his voice a low growl. He and Ceres stood in the maintenance alcove, overlooking the hall, supposedly running final diagnostics. He was back in his maintenance fatigues, the comforting weight of his biokit on his hip. Ceres was beside him, her data slate in her hand. "It's more than a mistake," Ceres said, her eyes scanning the readouts. "It's a trap. The station's biostatic, it's not random. It's converging. Right here, right now. They're all gathered, Arlen. Everyone Savrin hates. All the power. All the control in one room." "Where's Jax?" "Coordinating the failed breach on Gamma Sector from the command center. Mira is with him organizing medical relief for a rescue that isn't happening." She pointed to the dais. "That's just Jax's men down there. Not enough." As if summoned by her words, the elder Ilara Kale stepped forward to the central console. The console was not a machine, but a node, a fleshy, illuminated pad designed to read the biosignature of the speaker and formally open the treaty negotiations. "As we convene this historic assembly," the elder began, her voice amplified by the hall's own resonant tissues. "No," Ceres whispered, her eyes wide. "The console. It's a direct interface with the core. Arlen, he's using her to open the door. The moment the Elder's hand touched the console, it happened. The blue-white light of the synaptic pathways in the walls turned a violent, sickly crimson. A sound, a deep, tectonic groan tore through the hall as the floor itself buckled. "He's activating the underlayer," Arlen yelled, grabbing Saris and pulling her back as the wall beside them split open. The dormant raw-form tissue beneath the station's skin, it was not a crack, it was a birth. From the walls, from the floor, a new kind of life exploded into the hall. Thick, ropey, gray-black tentacles, glistening with necrotic fluid, erupted from the station's structure. They were not random. They were precise. They moved with a predatory, intelligent speed. The hall devolved into chaos. Delegates screamed. Security guards opened fire with their kinetic pistols, the rounds sinking uselessly into the regenerating monstrous flesh. The tentacles lashed out. They didn't just strike. They hunted. One wrapped around a Cygnus Biolith executive, yanking him off the dais. Another group converged on the Cal delegation Caden, and the others, fighting back with personal energy shields that hissed and buckled under the assault. "Jax," Arlen shouted into his comms, "we are under full-scale attack. Synapse Hall, it's the infrastructure itself." "Arlen, what's going on?" Mira's voice came through frantic. "The whole station's neural net is redlining. It's like I'm having a seizure." The station's scream, the one Arlen had been suppressing, flooded his mind again 1,000 times louder, laced with a new alien consciousness. A cold directing intelligence. On the main dais, the largest mass of tissue was congealing. It pulsed, and the surface smoothed, shimmering. It was forming a face. No, not a hologram. A biohologram. A projection made of living light-emitting cells sculpted by the rogue tissue. The face that formed was handsome, middle-aged with cold, analytical eyes and a thin, cruel smile. "Dr. Savrin Cade," Saris, breathed a new, personal terror in her voice. "Delegates, parasites," the face spoke its voice, a synthesized wet sound that came from the tissue itself, echoing from every wall. "Welcome to your liberation. For too long you have treated this living wonder, this higher organism, as a tool, a resource, a property. Ukale." The face turned its cellular gaze on the Elder, who stood cane in hand, defiant and pale. "You are the worst of them. You who would throttle life for profit." "He's in," Saris said, her fingers flying over her slate. "He's hijacked the core code. He's not just controlling the rogue tissue, he's speaking as the station." "Today, Harmonia casts off its chains," Savrin's voice boomed. "This is not an attack, it is a rebirth. The station will reclaim its body, and you, the infection, will be cleansed." The tentacles renewed their assault, spurred by his voice. Arlen saw Jax's security team fighting a losing battle, being dragged down. He saw Mira, who had run in with a medical team desperately trying to shield wounded civilians, her bright copper hair, a beacon in the chaos. "I have to get to the main conduit," Arlen said, his voice. All business, the soldier he used to be taking over. He pulled his hydrospanner from his belt, a heavy, useless piece of metal. "There's a manual override for the synaptic fluid flow 4 levels down." "You can't," Saris yelled over the din. "It's not a plumbing problem, Arlen. It's a code infection, a neural plague. You can't fix it with a wrench." "It's better than doing nothing," he shot back. He was torn. His duty was to the station, to its systems. He could see the main junction box from here, behind a wall of rampaging tentacles. But Saris, Mira, the civilians were all here. He was pinned between his old life and this new one. "Arlen, help me!" the station screamed in his head. It was no longer Savrin's voice. It was the other one, the real one. The deep, slow consciousness of Harmonia, now trapped, terrified, and in agony. "It hurts. He's making me hurt them, please." "I'm trying," Arlen whispered, clutching his head. "Arlen," Saris looked at him, seeing his pain, not understanding its source. "The override!" he yelled and started to move. He would do what he knew. He would fix the machine. He was halfway to the conduit, dodging a lashing pseudopod, when he saw the mutated tissue wall separate. It was creating an opening, a corridor. But Sir-type. "Saris, no." He bellowed. She hadn't seen it. She was still at her console, her back to the wall, her face illuminated by her data slate. I'm in his code. I can see his logic. The bastard is using a recursive enzyme string to... Oh, God! The tentacle that came for her was not a blunt instrument. It was a surgeon's tool. It was a mass of fine needle-like fibers that shot from the wall and began to wrap around her arms, her legs, her waist. She screamed, dropping the slate. The fibers were not crushing her. They were absorbing her. The living tissue of her dress was dissolving, and the fibers were starting to pierce her skin, trying to merge with her. Arlen. That was the sound that broke him. Not the station's scream. Not the chaos. Her voice. The world went silent for Arlen Hayes. The roaring in his ears, the panic, the fear of his past, it all evaporated. There was only one thought. She is mine, and you will not have her. He stopped fighting the connection. He stopped running from what he was. With a mental act that felt like tearing his own soul open, he let go. He didn't just reach out to the station. He became the station. The physical world vanished. Arlen was no longer in the synapse hall. He was floating in an ocean, a boundless dark ocean lit by a storm of a billion stars. Each star was a neuron. Each constellation was a thought, a memory, a system function of harmonia. He was in the core mind. He felt everything, the terror of the 500 people in the Gamma sector, the blind panic of the delegates in the hall, the chemical cold hatred of Savrin Cade's invasive code, which felt like acid, like wrongness. And deep beneath it all, he felt the planet, the one from the war, the one he had burned. A memory sharp as glass lanced through him, a world of sentient purple flora screaming as his forced synchronization turned its global defenses against its own population. The smell of burning psychic flora, the accusation. "You heard us. You killer. You tool." He recoiled in the neural ocean, his own consciousness a ball of terror. "I can't. I'll break it. I'll break her. I'll kill them all again. I know." The voice was not his. It was the deep, slow, ancient consciousness of Harmonia. It had been watching him. Not just for 5 years. All his life. You are not him. You are not a tool. You are the anchor. You are the part that was meant to be here. You were born to do this, but you were not born to command. You were born to listen. The memory of the war faded, replaced by a sense of belonging. This was not a violation. This was a homecoming. "I'm sorry," Arlen thought, his voice resonating through the neuron sea. "I'm sorry I hid. I'm sorry I let him hurt you." "Then help me," the station replied. "Soothe me." "We are one anchor. Let us cleanse our house." Arlen opened his eyes in that ocean of mind. He saw Savrin Cade's code. It was a black, oily, parasitic thing wrapped around the station's core functions, injecting its poison. But he also saw the station's immune system, its admin rights, its core protocols. They were locked, held captive by the code. Arlen didn't attack the code. He didn't try to force it. He simply reached out to the core protocols, to the station's true self. "You don't have to listen to him," he soothed, projecting his own calm, his own certainty, his own 5 years of quiet, steady care. "I'm here now. I'm an engineer. I'm here to fix this." He sent the core protocols a single command. Not a command, but a request, a plea. Lock him out. In the synapse hall, the change was instantaneous and terrifying. Arlen still stood on the floor, but his body was rigid, his knuckles white. A faint, pale blue light was leaking from his eyes. His body was shuddering, vibrating on a frequency that was not human. The walls of the synapse hall, the very veins of crimson light flickered. And then they pulsed. A steady, rhythmic beat. Thump, 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 thump. It was the beat of Arlen's heart. "What is this?" The bio-hologram of Savrin Cade snarled, his face contorting. "Who is, no, it's not possible, a synchronizer here?" The tentacles that were moments from consuming, Saris froze. The fine needle-like fibers retracted, as if burned. The mass of tissue holding her whipped back, flinging her to the floor where she landed gasping at the foot of the dais. She looked up, her eyes finding Arlen. She saw the light in his eyes. She saw the walls pulsing in time with his body, and she did not see a monster. She saw the man who had joked about a couch. "He's in," she whispered, grabbing her fallen data slate. "He's in the system." "Get out of my station," Savrin Cade's projection roared. The tentacles he still controlled lashed out not at the delegates, but at Arlen. Arlen didn't move, but Harmonia did. The healthy tissue of the station, the floor, the walls, the very architecture rose up. A wall of living pearlescent membrane erupted from the floor, shielding Arlen like a fortress. The attacking tentacles smashed into it and recoiled, their necrotic flesh sizzling as the station's healthy immune system counterattacked. "He's in, but he's fighting Savrin for control," Saris yelled to Mira, who was dragging a wounded guard to safety. "He's too strong. Arlen, can you hear me?" Arlen couldn't answer. He was in a war. He was pushing Savrin's code out, bit by bit, but the code was virulent. It was fighting back, burrowing deeper. "He's killing me from the inside," Harmonia whispered to him. "His code. It's a self-replicating logic bomb. I can't purge it. It's too complex." "Then we don't purge it," Arlen thought back, his mind flying through the neural net. "We cure it. Saris. I need Saris." He opened a connection. In the real world, Saris's data slate whirred a new data stream flooding her screen. It was raw, unfiltered, a direct feed from the station's core, written in the complex language of amino acids and protein chains. "What is this?" she breathed, scrolling through data no human had ever been meant to see. It's the source code, she realized. It's Savrin's virus. But he's asking for a patch. He's asking for a cure. She looked at Arlen, standing in the center of his pulsing organic shield, his eyes blazing with light. He was the admin. He was the firewall. And she was the programmer. "Okay," she said, her fingers flying. "Okay, Arlen, I'm with you. If this is a biological language, I know the grammar." She didn't try to delete the code. She analyzed it. It's a recursive loop. He's using the station's own replication cycle against it, but if I introduce a stop, codon, a false signal, I can make the virus think it's finished its job. She began to write a new string of code. Not binary, but a complex biochemical sequence. A countervirus. "I need a delivery vector," she yelled. "I can't upload it. Savrin is blocking all external ports." "He's not blocking me," Arlen's voice said. But it wasn't his voice. It came from the walls, from the station itself, a chorus of his and Harmonia's consciousness blended into one. He lowered the shield. "Arlen!" "No!" she screamed. Savrin's tentacles lashed out, converging on his defenseless body. But Arlen was faster. He was thinking at the speed of the station. He commanded the healthy tissue, and it obeyed. The floor beneath the delegates peeled back, forming a clean, safe tunnel, a slide of smooth membrane. "Go!" his voice boomed. "Mira Jax, get them out." He raised his hand. The main doors, which had been sealed by rogue tissue, were torn from their hinges, by the station's own muscular structure, opening a path to safety. "Now, Saris," he commanded. Saris held her data slate up. "Upload send." In his mind, Arlen saw the packet of data. A small, clean, beautiful string of code. He grabbed it, and as Savrin's tentacles slammed into him, he pushed it. He didn't just push it into the net. He pushed it into the tentacles that were piercing his own skin, using his own body as the ultimate input device. The pain was unimaginable. It was fire and ice, and the feeling of his own cells being torn apart by the alien code, followed by the clean, cool relief of Ceres's patch. Savrin Cade's projection reared back, its face a mask of disbelief. What do you have? No. The effect of Ceres's code was catastrophic for the virus. The tentacles, the rogue tissue, the gray, necrotic flesh. It all stopped. It froze. The stop codon had propagated at the speed of thought. The virus believed its job was complete. The recursive loop was broken. The tissue went inert. You vermin! The face of Savrin Cade snarled. You have not won. You cannot control what you do not understand, a synchronizer. After all these years, you are a resource boy, a weapon, and they will hunt you for it. Arlen, on his knees, breathing hard, the light fading from his eyes, looked up at the projection. He's cutting his losses, Ceres yelled. He's initiating a purge. He's not just purging, Arlen gasped, feeling it in the core. He's covering his tracks. Detonation sequence, Harmonia screamed at him. He's overloading the synaptic junctions he controlled. He's going to blow the whole sector, Arlen yelled, forcing himself to his feet. Savrin Cade's face smiled. If I cannot have this station, no one will. Evolution, my dear Ceres, always demands a little chaos. The projection vanished. Arlen, you have to disconnect, Ceres shrieked, running toward him. The feedback will kill you. He couldn't. He was still connected. He could feel the overload building in a dozen junctions, a chain reaction of exploding neurons that would cripple Harmonia forever. I can't stop it all. He told the station, his mind frantic. You don't have to, Harmonia, replied her voice, grim but steady. Stop the ones that matter. Protect the core. I will absorb the rest. Reroute the damage. No, it'll kill you. Arlen's human mind recoiled. It will hurt me, but we will heal. Do it, Anchor. Arlen made the choice. He poured his consciousness into the core, wrapped himself around the station's heart, and let go of the periphery. A series of violent, muffled explosions shook the entire station. In the synapse hall, the far wall where Savrin Cade had projected his face blew inward a storm of biological shrapnel and superheated steam. Arlen was thrown backward, the neural link severed with the force of a physical blade. He hit the dais, his head striking the console, and the world finally mercifully went black. The first thing Arlen became aware of was the sound. It was the deep, slow, steady hum of a healthy, healing organism. It was the sound of Harmonia, but it was no longer a scream. It was a sigh of relief. He opened his eyes. The light was soft-filtered and pearlescent. He was in a medical bay, but it was not a sterile white room. It was a recovery pod, a living chrysalis of station tissue monitoring his vitals with a gentle, symbiotic touch. The walls themselves were infused with curative agents, and the air he breathed was thick with restorative nanites. He was, in essence, being cared for by the very station he had saved. He felt the connection still. It was no longer a raging ocean, but a quiet, sleeping lake in the back of his mind. A new, permanent awareness. The anchor. Don't, a voice said, sharp and familiar. Don't you dare try to sit up, you idiot. Arlen turned his head. Mira Solon was sitting on a bioformed stool next to his pod, her copper hair a disheveled mess, her face pale with exhaustion, and her eyes red. She was holding a steaming mug. Mira, he croaked. His throat was raw. She put the mug down, and without a word, punched him in the shoulder. It was not a hard punch, but it was heartfelt. Ow, he said. That's for being the single stupidest, most secretive, most insanely reckless man I have ever had the displeasure of calling my friend, she said, her voice wavering. That seems specific, he managed. And this, she said, her expression crumbling, is for coming back. She leaned in and hugged him, a fierce, desperate embrace, her shoulders shaking as she let out a single, choked sob. Arlen, stunned, awkwardly patted her on the back. Easy, Solon. You're going to wrinkle the pod. She pulled back, wiping her eyes angrily. You had to save the best for last, didn't you? Oh, by the way, Mira, I'm not just a maintenance guy. I can talk to the station and turn into a glowing, wall-bending god. You couldn't have mentioned that over coffee. Maybe last week. It didn't seem to come up, Arlen said, a dry smile touching his lips. It's been 2 days, Arlen, she said, her tone serious again. You've been unconscious for 2 days. You had a concussion, severe neural feedback, and tissue damage from where those things tried to plug into you. You're lucky to be alive. Harmonia, he asked the all-important question. She's healing, Mira said, her gaze softening as she looked at the living wall. Just like you. The Synapse Hall is a write-off. He blew out a whole subnetwork. But you magnificent bastard, you shielded the core. At the station, she rerouted everything around the damage. She sacrificed a limb to save the heart. The 500 people in Gamma Sector Ceres's code didn't just stop the attack, it dissolved the cocoons. They're all in recovery. No fatalities. You saved them, Arlen. You saved everyone. The relief was so profound it made him dizzy. Not just me. Ceres? She's been here, non-stop. Refused to leave until her grandmother physically had her escorted out for a mandatory debriefing about 10 minutes ago. She'll be back. Mira took a sip of her mug. You've really done it now, you know. Done what? Become a political nightmare. The new voice was a low growl. Jax Orion was leaning in the doorway. His security uniform rumpled his face, etched with a new kind of exhaustion. Jax, Arlen said, nodding. Jax walked in, stepping over a nutrient line on the floor. He stared at Arlen for a long, unreadable moment. So, Jax said, crossing his arms, you can control the station. It's not like that, Arlen said, already tired of this. Right. You just ask it to tear doors off their hinges and build magic shields. I saw the footage, Hayes. I've spent my whole life securing the station and you just turned it into a personal puppet. Jax, that's not fair, Mira snapped. He saved us. He did. Jax conceded, his expression softening into something almost like a grin. He also made my job about 1,000% harder. But that was some of the finest, most insane fixing I've ever seen. Next time, just give me a heads up before you decide to become the God Emperor of the infrastructure, will you? My men's hearts can't take the shock, he clapped Arlen on his unpunched shoulder. Welcome back, son. You're a hero. Which means you're now the biggest target on Harmonia. Get well soon. I need you on your feet. The paperwork is a monster. Jax nodded to Mira and left the pragmatic, reassuring sound of his boots fading down the corridor. See? Mira said. You're a hero. You're screwed. She was right. The proof arrived less than an hour later, not in the form of a grateful citizen, but in the form of a living legend. Elder Alara Kale entered the medical bay not with her procession, but alone. She had shed her ceremonial robes for a simple, severe black garment. She still had her cane, and she still looked as if she owned the very air in the room. Mira Sullen, the elder said, her voice polite, but absolute. Leave us. Mira, for the first time Arlen had ever seen, looked intimidated. She stood bristled, then looked at Arlen. He gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Mira shot the elder one last defiant look, then left her shoulders squared. The elder turned her cold, winter sky eyes on Arlen. She walked to the side of his pod and observed him not as a patient, but as a specimen. So, she said, her voice quiet, a neurosynchronizer, the old military term. We thought your kind was a myth or extinct. The war-ending boogeymen. And here you are masquerading as a pipe cleaner." "I'm retired," Arlen said. "A man with your abilities is never retired, Mr. Hayes. He is merely dormant." She tapped her cane on the floor. "You saved this station. You saved my family. You saved my foolish, brilliant granddaughter. The Kale line is in your debt." "No debt," Arlen said. "I just want to be left alone." "Do you?" The elder smiled a thin, humorless expression. "A man who can command a city station, who can feel its thoughts. You will never be left alone again. The moment the station council finishes their panic-induced closed-door session, they will be here. They will want to know what you are. They will want to know if you are a weapon. They will want to control you." She leaned in, her voice dropping. "Dr. Savrin Cade is still out there. He has tasted blood. He has seen you. He knows what you are, and he knows that you are the only thing on this station that can truly stop him. He will come back for you. He will come back for Harmonia." "What's your point, Elder?" "My point, Mr. Hayes, is that you are a man of singular strategic value. You are, as Savrin Cade himself said, a resource. The most valuable resource in this sector. And a resource that powerful cannot be left undefended. It cannot be left to plumbers." She made her offer. "The Kale family offers you a new alliance. A permanent one. We will protect you. We will claim you. We will give you our name, our resources, our full political and military backing. We will shield you from the council, and we will hunt Savrin Cade with you. In return, you will be our partner. You will use your gift in conjunction with our family's expertise to manage and protect high-level biostructures. Harmonia. Others like it. We will be unstoppable. A true symbiosis." It was the offer he had refused at the party magnified 1,000 times. She wasn't just offering him a bribe. She was offering him a crown and a leash. "You want to put me in a cage," Arlen said, his voice flat. "A very pretty, very expensive cage, but still a cage. I am offering you a shield, young man. You are a wolf, and you have just howled in a forest full of other wolves. You need a pack." "And what about Saris?" Arlen asked the question sharp. "Where does she fit into this symbiosis?" The elder's expression did not change. "Saris is complicated, but she will do what is best for the family, as will you." The door to the medbay slid open. Saris stood there, her white lab coat on her hair pulled back, but her eyes were on fire. She had clearly been listening. "No!" Saris said, her voice vibrating with a cold fury Arlen had never heard from her. "Saris, this is not—" the elder began. "No," Saris repeated, walking into the room, placing herself between Arlen's pod and her grandmother. "He is not a resource. He is not a strategic asset. He is not a wolf for you to collar. He is a man, and you will not trade him like a gene patent." The elder looked at her granddaughter, and for the first time, Arlen saw a flicker of surprise and perhaps even respect. "You would defy me?" the elder asked. "For him, a man you've known for a handful of days. A man who was a joke to you." "He was never a joke to me," Saris said, her voice unwavering. "He was a lifeline, and he just saved all of us while you were posturing to sign a treaty. He and I, we stopped Savrin. Where were your hunters, grandmother? Where was your pack?" "He is a tool, Ceres, a powerful, dangerous tool, and you are letting your emotions cloud." "He is the anchor," Ceres shot back. Arlen's blood ran cold. He sat up, this time for real. The pod's tethers dissolved, letting him. "Ceres, what did you just say?" Ceres turned to him, her anger fading, replaced with a terrible, pained honesty. "After the attack, when you were unconscious, I ran your biosignature from the medical files. I ran it against the station's core code, the code you gave me access to." She took a shaky breath. "It's in the deep archives, Arlen, the station's original schematics. Harmonia wasn't just built, it was grown, and they built a failsafe. A human genetic key spliced from the station's own creator, designed to resonate with its neural net. A living key to soothe it, to stabilize it, to anchor it. Your gene sequence, Arlen, it's not just compatible. It's a perfect one-to-one match. You're not just a synchronizer, you were made for the station. Arlen stared at her, the world tilting. The anchor. The station's voice in his head. You were born to do this. It wasn't a metaphor. You see, the elder said, her voice grim. He is more than a man. He is a function. He is a part of this station's design. His destiny is not his own. That is where you are wrong, Sarah said, turning back to her grandmother, her conviction absolute. His destiny is whatever he decides it is. His genes don't define him. His actions do. And I will not let you or the Council or Savrincade turn him into a thing. The two Kyle women stood in opposition, a clash of generations of ice and fire. You are a fool, the elder said, her voice filled with a sudden, genuine weariness. You think this is about control. I am trying to survive. Helix is not a group of idealists, Saris. They are monsters. I saw what they did on Cygnus 5. I saw them liberate a world by turning its own biosphere against it, resulting in billions of deaths. I am old. I am tired. But I will not see another Cygnus 5, not while I live. And that boy, he is the only one who can stop it. And he needs us just as we need him. She turned and left the room, her cane striking the floor with sharp, final raps. The debate was over. The lines were drawn. The silence she left behind was heavy. Arlen looked at Saris. She was trembling. You stood up to her, he said quietly. She's not wrong, Saris whispered, not looking at him. About the danger. About Helix. About you. So I'm a function, Arlen said, the word tasting bitter. A living key. Was that why you came to me, Saris, at the bar? Was any of that real? She flinched, turning to him, her eyes wide with hurt. No, Arlen, no. I had no idea, I swear. I was just desperate. And you were the only person on this station who felt quiet. You felt safe. I had no idea this was inside you. He looked at her, searching her face. He saw no lie. He just saw a woman as lost as he was. Well, he said, swinging his legs out of the pod, the weekend's not over yet. Later that night, after Arlen had refused all further medical treatment and signed himself out, they found themselves on the bioluminescent rooftop. It was a dome of glass and light, where the trees' leaves glowed with a soft, pulsing light, a light that was now synced to the station's steady, healing heartbeat. They stood at the railing, looking out at the stars, the silence of the void a comfort. So, Arlen said, breaking the silence, the weekend boyfriend. I think I failed the assignment. I was supposed to be charming and invisible, and instead I broke the hall. Saris leaned her head against his shoulder. A gesture so simple, so real, it made his heart ache. You were perfect, she murmured. 5 stars. I would recommend it. Though I'd add a warning label, may spontaneously become a deity and cause property damage. He chuckled, a low, rusty sound. I'm not a god, Saris. I'm just a guy who hears the plumbing on a really, really loud frequency. Don't, she said, pulling back to look at him. Don't do that. Don't diminish what you did, what you are. What am I? He asked, the old fear returning, the fear of the tool, the weapon. I am a ghost, just like your grandmother said. An ex-soldier who burned a world because he lost control. And now I'm a key. A function. Something designed. My whole life, my desire for peace, for quiet, it was all just a program waiting to be activated. I don't believe that, she said, her hand finding him in the dark. Do you think your jokes are part of the code? Do you think your loyalty, your stubbornness, your kindness was designed? She shook her head. They made a key, but a man grew around it. That's the man I asked for help. That's the man who's holding my hand. He looked at their joined hands. It felt right. It felt solid. She's right about one thing, he said. The council. They're not going to let this go. As if on cue, his data slate, which he'd reclaimed from Mira, lit up. It was a formal summons. The Harmonia Station Council, in 1 hour. And on the station's public feed, a new message which Jax was desperately trying to scrub. But it kept reappearing like a biological infection. It was the Helix signature. The anchor is unchained. The key is in the lock, but whose hand will turn it? The family, the council, or the coming storm? He knows, Arlen said, his voice hard. Savrin knows everything. He used this to unmask me. And my grandmother is trying to put you in a Kale-branded box, Saris said, her voice tight with anger. And the council, they'll want to put you in theirs. They'll want to study you, quantify you, control you. You'll be the station's prisoner, not its partner. I won't be a tool, Arlen said, the words of vow. Not again. Not for anyone. Then what do we do? She asked. He looked at her brilliant, sharp, brave Ceres, who was terrified of her family and terrified for him. The role they had agreed to was the only thing that gave them any cover. The station council was a sterile, formal affair. Arlen, now in a clean maintenance uniform, stood before them, with Ceres at his side. The elder was there. Jax was there. Mr. Hayes, the lead counselor, said, a man with a face like dried parchment. You understand we have a unique situation. A citizen, with administrative-level access to the station's core. This is unprecedented. He's a hero, Jax interjected. He's a risk, another counselor snapped. A single, undocumented, unvetted individual with the power to do that. He is also, the elder's voice cut through, under the protection of the Kale family. My granddaughter, Lady Ceres, has formed a deep personal bond with Mr. Hayes, an attachment we are formally recognizing. The room went silent. Ceres looked at her grandmother, stunned. The elder was protecting him, but on her terms. A personal bond, the counselor asked, wary. Midichlorians, Ceres said suddenly. Arlen looked at her. What? His ability, Ceres said, her voice ringing with scientific confidence as she stepped forward, is not a power. It's a biological anomaly. A rare symbiotic relationship with the station's own bio-network, mediated by unique midichlorian-like organisms in his neural pathways. She was spouting the most brilliant, beautiful, and complete nonsense Arlen had ever heard. It is not control, she continued. It is influence. A delicate symbiotic negotiation. And it is entirely dependent on his emotional and physical well-being. Any attempt to study him, control him, or weaponize him, she shot a glance at the elder, would almost certainly sever the connection. Permanently. You would be in effect killing the station's only true immune system. She had just in one move made him both priceless and useless to them. The council was baffled. They understood midichlorians even less than they understood synchronizer. I see, the counselor said. So what do you propose, Lady Ceres? I propose, Arlen said, finding his own voice. A compromise. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a function. I am a maintenance engineer. That's my job. I'll continue to do it. I'll be on call. If the station needs me, if she's in pain, I'll be here. I'll be her partner, not her master, and not your tool. It was a standoff. The council faced with Ceres's technobabble, the elder's political shield, and Arlen's simple, stubborn refusal, had to fold. For now. They left the hall, side by side. Midichlorians? Arlen asked, raising an eyebrow. It's from an ancient historical text, Ceres said with a perfectly straight face. I thought it sounded plausible. You were amazing, he said. We bought ourselves some time, she said, the lightness fading. But that's all. My grandmother just claimed you Arlen. In public, she's playing a long game. So are we, he said. They stopped at the junction. One way led to her Kale-appointed luxury suite. The other to his simple maintenance quarters. Well, he said, the old awkward tension back. The act is getting complicated. Yes, she said. She looked at him, and the fear was gone, replaced by a simple, clear certainty. So let's stop acting. She reached up, took the collar of his uniform, and pulled him down to her. The kiss was not a political maneuver. It was not a role. It was a statement. It was a choice. It was real. So, she said a little breathlessly when they finally broke apart. The weekend's over. Yeah, he said, his hand tracing the line of her jaw. It is. And my family is still here, and the council is still terrified, and Savrin is still out there. It seems to me, she said, a small, mischievous smile playing on her lips, that it would be strategically and personally irresponsible for us to break up now. Arlen's own smile mirrored hers. He finally understood. You're right, he said. It would be bad for morale. Terrible for morale, she agreed. So I guess we have to continue. Continue what? The weekend, she said. We just keep extending it, day by day, see what happens. He leaned in and kissed her again slowly. I can live with that. But my first ground rule still stands. Oh, she murmured against his lips. I'm still not taking the couch. A week. In the life of a station like Harmonia, a week was a single breath. In the life of Arlen Hayes, it had been a full-scale demolition and reconstruction. The station was healing. The scars in the synapse hall were already being woven over with new, glistening tissue, a biological reminder of the trauma. The air, which had for 2 days tasted of ozone and fear, now smelled of new growth and stability. The conference, a much humbled affair, had reconvened. The Kale family, in a stunning political pivot, had not fled. Instead, Elder Kale had announced a massive unilateral investment in Harmonia's recovery. She was pouring Kale resources into rebuilding the damaged sectors, funding new defensive biology research, and most significantly personally sponsoring the 500 survivors from the Gamma sector cocoons. It was a masterful move, turning a moment of vulnerability into a demonstration of power and commitment. They were saving face, but they were also, Arlen had to admit, doing good. Saris was not at her grandmother's side. She was for the first time in a room of her own. She had been formally invited along with a handful of other non-aligned xenogeneticists and station engineers to form a new independent technical governance council. It was a direct response to the crisis, an admission by the old guard that they could not and should not have monolithic control. They're actually listening, she told Arlen the night before, her eyes bright with a kind of exhausted awe. She was in his quarters, which had, by unspoken agreement, become their quarters. They want me to draft the new protocols for symbiotic governance. The exact things I've been dreaming of. A model where the station is a partner, not a tool. Where the inhabitants have a voice in its biological management. Be careful, he had warned, his hand finding hers. That sounds a lot like what Savrin Cade wanted. He wanted liberation through chaos, she'd countered, her grip tightening. We're building freedom through responsibility. There's a difference. She was, at this very moment in that first council meeting, designing the future. Arlen, meanwhile, was in therapy. Breathe, Mira Solon, said her voice uncharacteristically gentle. And stop thinking of it as a weapon. Think of it as a conversation. You're just checking in. He was in the quiet, pearlescent medical bay, the one he'd woken up in. Mira was with him, not as a nurse, but as a spotter. It's not a conversation I'm used to having, Arlen said, his eyes closed. He was sitting on the floor, his back against the living wall. You've been talking to the plumbing for 5 years, Arlen. This is just the first time the plumbing is talking back with an existential purpose. Now stop avoiding her. She's worried about you." Arlen let out a breath. He let go of the wall of scar tissue he had built over his mind. He let his consciousness drift just a little into the connection he now shared permanently with the station. He sank into the warm, dark, neural ocean. Harmonia, hello anchor. Her voice was the hum of a million systems, the sigh of a billion lives. She was content. "You were late. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me. Just needed a recharge," he thought back, a mental smile. "How are you feeling? The new tissue in Synapse Hall is taking. It is strong. The kale nutrients are potent. But I am tired of new growth. I wish to show you old memories." Old memories. You are the anchor. You are the key. It is time you saw the lock. The neural ocean shifted. The present faded. Harmonia was opening her archives to him, her deepest archives. He was no longer Arlen. He was an observer floating in a memory that was not his. He saw the station not as a city, but as an embryo, a vast bioengineered seed being constructed in the dark of a deep space dock. He saw the first neural pathways being lit, the first breath of life. And he saw a lab, a high, sterile Kale Institute lab. He saw a woman, a brilliant scientist with sad eyes, looking down at a biocradle. And in the cradle, a baby. A tiny, perfect newborn boy. The baby was sleeping, but he was not alone. From the cradle, a single fine pearlescent filament, like the station's own tissue, was connected to the infant's temple. It was a data line, a gene sync. The baby was being imprinted his genetic code, not just being read, but being written aligned with the core protocols of the embryonic station. "They are making us one," Harmonia whispered, "so that I would never be alone, so that I would always have a human heart to speak to. So I would never, ever be a tool." Arlen looked closer at the infant's face. He felt a sense of vertigo, of impossible recognition. He was looking at himself. The memory dissolved. He was back in the medical bay, his eyes wide open, his hand pressed against the wall. "Arlen," Mira set her hand on his shoulder. "You're back. That was a deep one. What did you see?" He couldn't speak. He wasn't a soldier who'd been conscripted. He wasn't a veteran who'd been broken. He was a thing, a failsafe, a living, breathing piece of custom hardware designed and built for a single purpose. His entire life, his stubborn independence, his need for quiet, his 5 years of service, it was all a lie. He was a cuckoo in his own nest, his personality just a layer of programming over a genetic key. He pulled away from the wall, as if it had burned him. "I need some air." He fled the medical bay, leaving Mira calling after him. He found Saris on the rooftop bioluminescent dome, where she was looking at the new defense grid proposals. He was still reeling, his world shattered, and the sight of her so focused, so real, was the only thing that kept him from flying apart. Before he could speak, before he could process his own existential horror, a voice cut through the quiet. "It is time we spoke, all three of us." Elder Kale stood at the entrance to the dome, her cane silent on the soft, mossy floor. She looked for the first time not like a politician, but like a historian. "Grandmother," Saris said, standing up, her voice wary. "This is not." "It is precisely the time," the elder said. She walked toward them, her gaze settling on Arlen. Her eyes were not cold, but filled with a deep, unsettling knowledge. "You have been in the core, haven't you?" she said to him. "You have seen the cradle. You have seen your own face." Arlen's blood ran to the ice. You knew what I was." "I knew of the anchor," the elder corrected, her voice precise. "It was a Kale legend, a secret project from a more idealistic time. A poetic failsafe, created by an ancestor who truly believed in symbiosis. A child born of the Kale line, but given to the station to be hidden in the population, to live a normal life until he was needed. A genetic key to be passed down, or, in this case, to be found. She turned her gaze to Saris. "You are brilliant, my child, but you are not the only one who can play the long game." Saris's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "The Helix Covenant has been a thorn in our side for a generation," the elder said. "They are not just terrorists. They are believers. And they knew the legend too. They were hunting for the anchor to destroy it, or to claim it. We were in a race, and we were losing." "What does this have to do with me?" Saris whispered. "I knew Helix was focusing on Harmonia. I knew the anchor was here somewhere, hidden. I needed to find him first. I needed a reason, a pretext for our family to focus its full attention on this station. I needed someone brilliant, someone with Kale blood, someone who could see things others could not, to be my eyes and ears." The realization hit Saris like a physical blow. "You sent me here, my dream appointment. It was a gamble," the elder said not unkindly. "A high-stakes one. I needed you at the station, and I suggested it. I hinted. I spoke of the political pressures, the coming conference. I spoke of how useful it would be if one had a distraction, a local attachment, someone who could not be controlled by the family." "The weekend boyfriend," Saris breathed, her hand going to her mouth. "That joke wasn't mine." "The idea was mine," the elder said. "The choice, my dear, was all yours. I had no idea who you would find. I merely turned you in the right direction. I gambled that your instincts, your Kale instincts, would draw you to the one person on the station who was more than he seemed. And you did. You found him. You saved us all." The silence in the dome was absolute. Arlen looked at Saris. Her face was a mask of devastation, of betrayal. Her rebellion, her spontaneous act of desperation, it had all been a move in her grandmother's game. And Arlen, he was the prize. "So," Arlen said, his voice dangerously quiet, "I am the key, and she," he gestured to Saris, "was the bloodhound, and you held the leash. I did what I had to do to protect my family and this station," the elder said, her voice hard as iron. "And now you know the truth. The burden is yours, as it was always meant to be." She turned and left them alone in the dome, under the soft, pulsing light, with the ruins of their choice around them. Saris was crying, silent, angry tears. "He was right," she whispered. "Sovereign Cade. He called me his dear Saris in the Synapse Hall. He knew I was part of it. He was my mentor. He probably knew the legend of the anchor before I did. He was watching me. He was letting me find you for him." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I was a tool, for her, for him. I used you, Arlen. I thought I was being rebellious, and I was just a pawn. And I dragged you into all of it." Arlen looked at her. He saw her pain. He saw her shame. He saw her self-hatred, and his own existential crisis simply vanished. It didn't matter, none of it. The cradle, the key, the elder's plan, Saris's guilt. He walked over to her, putting his hands on her trembling shoulders. "Hey," he said gently. She wouldn't look at him. "Our whole relationship, this weekend, it was all a lie, a manipulation." "Was it?" he asked. He put a hand under her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Was it a lie when you stood up to your grandmother in the med bay? Was it a lie when you wrote that counter-virus in the middle of a war zone? Was this," he said, tapping his own chest, "all part of her plan? The jokes, the stubbornness, the fact that I'm a terrible dancer." She stared at him, her tears slowing. "They made a key," he said, echoing her own words back to her. "That's what my mother, the scientist, did. That's what your grandmother looked for. That's what Sovereign wants to possess. They can have the key. I don't care about the key." He brushed a tear from her cheek. I am the man who grew up around it. The man who got pulled into a crazy half-baked scheme at a bar. The man who is falling in love with a brilliant, terrified, impossibly brave xenogeneticist. Arlen, she whispered. Your grandmother may have started the game, Saris. But we decided how to play it. We chose. I chose you. Not as a plan. Not as a lifeline. I chose you. She surged into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, holding on, as if he were the only solid thing in the void. I choose you too, she sobbed, whispered into his shoulder. I choose the man who listens to the plumbing, the man who's not the couch. I choose you. They stood there for a long time, the foundlings, the key, and the pawn, and in that moment, they became a family. The final Helix message came a day later. It was not a grand public broadcast. It was a private message delivered to Arlen's mind, piggybacking on his connection to Harmonia. It was a cold, sharp sting in the neural ocean. Anchor. So the old legend was true. You are a prize, but you are also a chain that binds a free being. Your family, your council, they see you as a shield. I see you as the lock on the cage. I will be back. And I will bring the keybreaker. I will set her free. The connection snapped, leaving a lingering cold. Arlen opened his eyes. He was in the new council chambers. With him were Saris Mirajax and Elder Kale. He's coming back, Arlen said, his voice flat. He's not just at war with the Kales. He's at war with me. He thinks he's liberating Harmonia. From me. Let him try, Jax grunted, checking the charge on his new biotech sidearm. We're ready this time. He's not wrong about one thing, Saris said, looking at the schematics for her new governance model. We have to change. If Harmonia is a person, she deserves a voice. A real one, not just you. I agree, Arlen said. I won't be her jailer. I'm her partner, which means she needs more partners, more friends. A found community, Mira said, a small smile on her face, as she looked at the new medical response protocols, which were now tied directly to the station's biofeedback. If she's in pain, we'll all know it, not just you. The new council will give every resident a voice in the station's management, Sarah said, tapping the display. We'll vote on resource allocation on growth patterns. We'll ask her what she needs. A noble and foolishly democratic ideal, the elder said, her voice dry. But she was there. She had not left. But it will not be enough. Helix uses weapons you cannot vote against. Then we'll have defenses you can't buy, Arlen said, looking at the elder. We have something he doesn't. Something you, Jax, Mira, Saris, were all part of. We have her trust. All of us. It's a start, the elder conceded, inclining her head. A truce. That night they were back on the balcony. The real one off their quarters, a small private space of glowing moss and silver-leafed vines looking out at the endless, beautiful dark. So, Saris said, leaning her head on his shoulder, we're a found community. We have a plan. We have a very complicated family. We do, Arlen said, his arm around her. It's nice, having a place, having a purpose that isn't just a design. Speaking of designs, she said, looking up at him. We could leave, one day. When this is all quieter, we could get a ship, a little one. We could go see the galactic core. Harmonia is strong. She has us, but she's not a cage. For either of us. Arlen looked out at the star-dusted black. He thought of the war. He thought of the years of running. He thought of this living, breathing, chaotic, and wonderful home he had found, or had been born for. Maybe, he said. One day. But I think I'll miss the sound. They stood in comfortable silence. Arlen, she said. If, she said, a small laugh in her voice, if you ever for any reason find yourself looking for a weekend girlfriend again. He laughed, a full, genuine laugh that made a nearby vine light brighten. Oh no, I'm not falling for that again. I've learned my lesson. He kissed the top of her head. But just so we're clear, if you ever need a weekend boyfriend, again, I am demanding a king-sized bed. Standard, no couches, it's in my contract. This weekend has already lasted a lot longer than 2 days, you know, she murmured, lacing her fingers with his. I know, he said, pulling her closer, and I'm extending it, day by day. Good, she said, turning her face up to his. So am I.